Hi, thanks for joining us here in May of 2023. I'm David Couch with the Kentucky Department of Education. For those that are new, this is something we do every month and have been doing for about 15 years with our Kentucky K-12 CIOs and EdTech leaders, along with our own staff, join us here. So thank you for joining us. Go Soapbox is open. We got the link there. We have 3 questions that we'd like you to respond to, and we'll be giving those responses, but really any kind of thing that you're interested in, we have people monitoring that for me that bubble up to the top that we'll address. I've sent you the agenda for today. I've also encouraged you to, if you were not able to join last month, to take a look at our summary of last month and maybe even referencing part of that today. So once again, thanks for joining us, and I'll start with our agenda. First item we have, want to spend some time with is leases over $100,000. Believe, and I can't see everyone that's on here, but I know our Office of Legal Services was hitting to join us today. Lindsay Swartz. Lindsay, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, thank you, Lindsay. So let me give you the background of this, the best I know it before we kind of go through the details. It looks like, and I'm not sure what year this really went into place with leases. It was before 30 years ago when I arrived. So leases over $100,000 has been a requirement in statute for at least 30 years. It may be 40 years or 50 years. Now, I'm just going to assume why that was put in place. I suspect part of that was to help ensure the district had the financial ability to pay for a lease over X number of years before they entered into it, especially with people coming and going in a district, to make sure they had that. Probably also to help ensure the district was well positioned and protected from a legal aspect and the legal terms of the contract. You know, back in those days, there really wasn't technology beyond typewriters, and I don't think typewriters probably would have been entered into a lease. So I suspect that law was mainly put in place for buildings and land, but still is in place today. I want to say 20 years ago-ish, there was a reg put in place around leases, and that reg expired several months ago, which was, I'd be honest with you, fine with me. That expired, but daggone it, there's a statute that requires a reg. And so you have 2 options. Probably one option is to change the statute so it no longer requires a reg, or go forth with a reg but update it as modern times. You also see part of the statute, and I have Lindsay on here as my adult supervision on this to help make sure I'm correct in what I say from the legal aspect, but one of the statutes around leases talks about a 7-year maximum. As we know in education technology, that's one component I wish did not have that on there, 7 years, because a good number of our items last beyond 7 years. You know, a fiber line, you know, there's not a problem with, from a technology aspect of leasing it for 10 years or 20 years because it lasts that long. Same thing with phone systems. So, you know, that wording I'm sure was in there with good intentions at the time, but you know, so you'll see those kind of timeframes in there. But you know, the good news is I looked at it as because the reg expired, it allowed us to remove some things that really were no longer applicable. The reg, for example, even reduced the amount of years you can enter into a lease for technology-related item to 5 years. Obviously, that's not something we want to even mention in a lease, and probably would just want the lease just to say leases in general versus anything education technology specific. But you know, and so we have this interim time. We have the reg has expired. My understanding, there's intention to you know, recreate that reg, but it takes several months, maybe a year to do that. So you know, what do we do in the interim to do that? And so, given this process has been a while, so I wanted to go over with you the process and we try to update the process. We have updated it to speed things up, to eliminate steps. and steps being people looking at it and going to this person and this person and this person, and then circling back to this person and this person. And so with any kind of process, you take a look at all the steps that are involved and say, is it really adding significant and overwhelming value? And you want to turn these things around as fast as possible to districts, but with quality, to make sure there's good quality to it. But eliminating unnecessary steps and people reviewing it. And that's what we've done. We've eliminated a lot of the steps to try to turn these things around pretty quickly. You'll see we're going to give you some guidance and a heads up of really specific things that need to be included on the initial submission of that lease, for it to have a high probability of being quickly approved within the agency. And obviously those things that aren't in there ups the probability of those being returned by the district, adding steps and time frames. So if the goal all of us should be, how fast can we get these things approved with quality, and making sure the quality that there needs to be there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring up a Word document that Lindsay and myself will talk from, and I'll share that now. Give you some background of this. So assuming you all can see this now, is that correct?
We got it.
Okay. So we talked about this. Let me see a typo. I got to fix here. That's good. We talked about this last month, and so it's in the summary notes about the leases over $100,000. So this is a little bit more detail about it. Given really this timing, there's two major times that we see leases submitted to KDE that are over $100,000 for approval. One is right before summer break, which is now, for the districts that want things available and in place before students return in August and September. So this is the time, the second biggest time that we see. The other big time that we see is during the E-rate filing window in March timeframe, which we've passed. That would be mainly for the lease fiber lines. So what we see now primarily is districts want to buy copiers and printers and computers during this time frame. And some phone systems, I'm really surprised. I'll show you a stat on the amount of property. I would always thought property and buildings, districts would be doing a lot more leasing of those items, which was probably the original intent of this statute, 30, 40, 50 years ago. But I don't see that, that they're submitting it. So primarily we're seeing it's for technology related items. So part of the process that we have changed, you'll start right here. Districts are to email leases over $100,000 and any aspect of that lease to this following email address. Now, when I say any aspect of that lease, and Lindsay can speak to that, if your lease starts talking about addendums, make sure all those addendums are in there. If they're not in there, you'll be circling back to the superintendent to ask the superintendent to get with the right folks in the district to supply everything that the lease references. And so once again, that adds time, that adds steps. And if the goal by the district and us is to speed that up, you want to make sure every aspect of that lease, anything it references, is all included in your initial submission. And you're making sure you're submitted to leases of 100K at education.ky.gov. So a key part of here, do not send this to your CADS engineer. Do not send this to any specific person in Office of Education Technology or Office of Legal Services or the Commissioner's Office. You send it to this address. Now, the reason we have tried to once again make this more efficient, because at the same time, there's been a main point of contact for leases in three different parts of KDE. The Commissioner's Office, the KDE Office of Legal Services, and we have Lindsay Swartz on there. She's the main point of contact, and the Office of Education Technology. It's really one person in every one of those places where this goes to. Understanding that if someone's out sick or ill, there's a backup in place. I know we have that in OET. So if the main point of contact we've identified is out sick or leaves or whatever, we have a backup there in place until that person get back in work, so it doesn't slow it down at all. But the good news is none of these really require to be sequential. Office of Legal Services, there's no reason they can't look at it immediately when we get it at the same time. And so it goes to them immediately versus it going to the KE sending to someone in OET then sending it to OS. So we're eliminating, a bunch of steps there. It's going straight to the right people in those offices immediately. And I would tell you is if you send it to the KE is instructed to give you a call and instruct you to send it to leases over 100K because they won't be forwarding it. Because once again, the intent is it going straight from the district to the main points of contact that review these leases. And once again, for those that are helping me out here, I can't see the chat when you're presenting here. You can't see the chat comments, and so if someone has raised a hand or something, I'll count on one of my staff to help me out with that. So number 2 step here, or item I want to talk about here, is ensure when the email is sent by the district, it contains not only the lease and everything that should be part of that lease and everything mentioned in that lease is the district's legal point of contact. It's pretty interesting. Of all the positions in the district, when you go to your district websites, it doesn't list your district's legal point of contact, your representation. It's not in a school report card. It's not in anything. So Katie really has no ability to know the legal points of contact for every district. And I understand is you may have 10 legal points of contact. You're hiring 10 different companies and they specialize in different areas, and maybe that's one of the reasons, but we don't have that. And so Katie, the agency needs that right up front. So when you send the lease, it needs the district's legal point of contact, their phone number, their email address, because if our legal staff, Office of Legal Services, has a question, is they need to know who the right person in the district to contact. And by the way, our legal staff will only interact with the district's legal rep and not the vendor's legal rep. That's the district's job to interact with the vendor and the vendor's legal staff about anything that needs to be part of the lease. So they don't get, and Katie doesn't get in the middle of that. That's the district's responsibility. So you have slowed up your submission and approval, adding steps I consider unnecessary steps, because if we don't see the district's legal point of contact, you'll get an email will be sent to the superintendent and say, can you please provide your legal point of contact? And you'll see a form that we have at the bottom that hopefully will help that out, that you submit along with it as well. So once OET, the Office of Education Technology, receives it, let's go down here a little bit, leases over 100K, we will typically, and I tend within 3 to 5 minutes, our portion, the Office of Education Technology portion, is approved. We're just mainly looking for what it is that you're leasing, computers or printers or copiers or lease lines, phone system. All those items are automatically approved, eligible to be leased. And so we're just really looking for what the item is, mainly make sure it's not property like a building or you're leasing land, because obviously that's not something that's something that we approve. That goes to, I guess no one really, Katie, approves that besides make sure the legal terms are correct. The part that we do after we look at that 3 to 5 minutes, there's 2 steps that you see. That same day we received it. So this is all from an OET perspective. Obviously, we do this in the same day. Is we draft the approval letter, and I'm going to show you an example of that. That will be sent that same day to the commissioner's office. Now, so I have draft on the top of it. So that's the hint to the commissioner's office that not all the steps have been completed yet. Particularly, they need to wait until the Office of Legal Services gives their thumbs up before they remove the draft and send it. So that's our way to inform the commissioner's office that it has not completed its journey and not to forward it yet, because it'll be in red and have draft on it. At the same time, that same day, OLS will send a quick note, the commissioner's office and OLS along with that, that draft of the approval that says, from an OET perspective, this type of lease service, and you see the items there, is the type that is automatically eligible for approved lease, regardless of the length of the lease, and does not require any further OET review or approval of the contents of the lease. So that'll be part of it. So those two will typically be done on the same exact day that we receive a lease from the district. The next step of that is the Office of Legal Services conducts their review. I think I mentioned this already. The legal point of contact that deals with leases in that office, Lindsay, would interact with the district's legal staff on any legal issues regarding the lease language as needed. Once they are good and all the parts are there, and there's a little checklist that I'm going to show you that the kind of things that they're looking for from the district, then they inform the commissioner's office that OS recommends that the word approval, disapproval on the specific leases be reflected in the commissioner's office. And just as a FYI, I say that over, I think down here a little bit lower, I can't recall a time in all the years that has been disapproved. Now it's gone through steps back and forth between the districts, particularly between the legal and the district, the legal rep and the vendor rep, legal vendor rep of the district that's working with the district, going back and forth. But typically at the end of the day, these get approved. I can't remember in 30 years of this it not being approved. So we give the commissioner's office and you'll see in the approval note, they can change out the word approval and put disapproval, but it's always been approved. Then the commissioner's office will send the approval letter. Will not be coming from OET. It will not be coming from OLS. It will be coming from the commissioner's office, and the commissioner's office will send by email to the superintendent the letter of approval, and they'll be sending a blind courtesy copy to OLS and OET points of contact to let them know it's reached the finish line. So part of this, I'm educating our districts, and part of this, I'm educating our OET staff. This is a history over the past 5 years of leases to give you a feel for it. You can see the biggest chunk of these is the fiber connection from the school to the KD Internet Hub. And we've passed that really crunch time in March. So the crunch time that we're on now are these and the copiers. So districts trying to get those in before school starts. And they say property is just this really tiny amount, which I'm kind of surprised about. So if there's anything else I want to mention about that. The good news from districts is I think part of the apprehension over many years of is will districts enter into a lease for something that no longer has value, and they say fiber and as I've noticed, really, I want to talk about leases in general. It's a good opportunity for me to talk about leases. So leases is typically something you don't own at the end of it. You can be given the option, but there is 99.9% of the time you don't own them. So fiber is an example of that. Districts lease a fiber line, typically from a telco company or a cable company, and never own it. Never own it. I mean, and fiber, as we know, the best we know, lasts forever. And so you're just leasing the use of that, and there's not really an intention or desire to buy that. In fact, someone else operates that for you on your behalf, which is a smart way to operate. Copiers is one where, my experience is a very low, very, very low percentage. It's a 1% type of thing of districts want to keep those copiers at the end of purchasing them and or leasing them. I guess those should be copier printers. There should be probably printers next to that, because that's really, copiers should be probably copier/printer, because that's what we're finding that these are now. We'll have that wording, but we find that this is truly a lease. They never own them. At the end of the lease, there's a refresh of a brand new model of the device, and which is typically what leases are. Is you never really typically own it. But while you may be given the option of buying at the end of it, the really nice thing about a lease option, even when you're leasing cars, is you just get a new one. You regularly get a new one, and it's rare that you buy it at the end of it for copier printers. Computers, and this has been true since the 90s. I don't know why, and there probably is a legal reason why they use the term lease. but it's not really leasing. It's a financial loan to actually purchase them. And 99.9% of the time, districts are actually buying these. They're not leasing. A true lease would be at the end of like 5 years, you get a total refresh on the devices, and you never own them. You never own what you just used. So what I find is a very high percentage of districts, it's really a financial plan to own these things, which I don't know why the word lease is used, but I'm not. In fact, I'm trying to remember a time where it was a true lease with computers. It was really they're going to own them. But the good news is all these years of looking at this, I've never really seen the apprehension. Well, will they enter into a financial arrangement to buy to lease or get a financial strategy loan plan for a computer for 10 years for something that end of life in 5 years? And to be honest with you, looking at all these things, I know there's maybe one of the 1,000 that have come in over, since the 1990s. Is I can't recall a district not exhibiting good judgment and saying, we just want to lease this for 3 to 5 years, or a financial plan to buy it over 3 to 5 years and get it immediately. So there's not really much that Katie has added that I've seen to any of these as far as making sure a district didn't buy something that and finance it or lease it for a longer plan than it was really worth. Although that would have been a good apprehension. So let's move on to the next step, the example of the approval letter. So the Office of Education Technology, the day that we receive the lease, we create this. And this is example one, and this is actually one that we sent, but I put draft on it. So we'll have draft there, and that's the key and the cue and the hint to both the Commissioner's Office here in KD and Office of Legal Services that this is not done. This is still requires another step of approval, primarily the Office of Legal Services. So you see we create this. It's really short. It's a really short sentence. It's got the superintendent's name. Please be advised the approval of the lease, and goes from the commissioner. And typically, the step is once the Office of Legal Services gives a thumbs up to the commissioner's office, usually the same day the commissioner's office sends it out to the district. And so OETs is usually the same day to the commissioner's office and OLS. Typically, the commissioner's office is the same day they receive the thumbs up from OLS. And I think OLS's time frame is really going to be based upon when we go through the checklist, how well the district includes everything they should have included and addressed in the checklist. And I think that takes me to that. So Lindsay, I'll let you take us through this, and I'll kind of scroll it on your behalf as you get down here, or you can give me kind of introduction you want to it. So we've got Lindsay Swartz of the Office of Legal Services.
Sure. So we have developed this form for use by your local board attorney so they can fill out this form. It is optional. If you choose to submit this form, you'll just submit it along with your lease package to the email address David's mentioned. And we hope that this, you should see expedited review process if you do use this form. If you do not use this form, then KD will just revert to its typical review process that David's been mentioning.
So do you want to go over the details of this going down here to kind of educate them on what this is?
Sure. Yeah, you can. Again, this is something that you would look to your board attorney to fill out. They'll review your documents and ensure that all of this is in it. And then if you want to scroll on down to the bottom, David, there is a place for your board attorney to sign and include their information. And, they would just be checking all the documents for inclusion of all of these items. And if, your board attorney has any questions, they can email me about the form or any additional legal terms. I can put my email in the chat for you all.
So, and I saw Todd Allen's kind of replied to the question I asked this morning, the two, so I'm going to kind of address those. So you heard me talk about a regulation that's being put in place. So the intent is to make this form, which is now optional, a required part of the regulation. As I read that, as I think I'm reading his note here, and it's a good opportunity for us to pilot prior to making a requirement. And districts who optionally submit the form should see an expedited response times, and that's what the purpose of of Office Legal Services creating this is to give the district and your legal point of contact and your vendor's legal point of contact the things that the Office of Legal Services is looking for and needs to see in these things. And so I think this is a good way to expedite it. I did ask the question, and I was trying to be predictive a little bit. Well, one if the superintendent wants to sign this instead of the attorney, and my understanding is it needs to be an attorney, the legal rep of the district. And so what Lindsay's saying is if you don't fill out this form, you'll still be going through this is what they'll be looking for. So even if you don't fill it out and sign at the bottom, these are the things they're looking for. And so it gives you a heads up. So the really way to expedite it is to have your legal team, sign this and provide it to the Katie's Office of Legal Services. If you don't sign it, that's okay, as Lindsay says. You'll still be going through these, and they'll still be looking for these and working through them. If they don't see them, then Katie will be contacting the district and say, I don't see this, or it's not plain, or the addendum, or anything else that's there. Lindsay, what have been the common things that you've seen that we've had to ask districts, I don't see this. So there's something mentioned in the document, typically I've seen, and there's an addendum mentioned, we go, we don't see it, but you mentioned it. Is that those are the type of things, right? And probably the main things.
Main things that we look for, is that what you're asking?
Or do you seen that been an issue that we've had to circle back to district because they weren't there?
Yeah, indemnity is one thing that we see a lot of. That's very common, where a vendor will say, you'll indemnify us for anything, and so that's not permitted by the Kentucky Constitution. So we'll notify districts of that and inform them how to address that. This form specifically mentions indemnity. That's usually one of the main ones that we see.
The other one is that I just remember just recently, there's some addendum that they've mentioned that it's not there. And so when they mention an addendum, that's what I say is if you don't include everything that lease kind of references, they'll be circling back to you. And then you just added some steps and time for you all to do it, for it to get back in the queue here. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and another example is, districts sometimes submit a schedule to a lease, but we don't see the actual lease. And so we need to see all documents that are part of the lease.
Yeah. Okay. So our intention is, and I'll pop off this just so I can see if I can see what comments are. If you can hang on here just a little bit, Lindsay. It's also our intention to, every Monday, there's a Monday message that goes from Katie to superintendents. And it's our intention to send pretty close to the following wording to them about that. So once again, this kind of educates them on it. And you all too, we get about 30 leases a year. It's over a little bit over 2 a month. So it's not a huge number, but when it does happen, it's important to you, and it's important to you to get it turned around very quickly. So that's announcing that. And then once again, just like we've told you all, send it to this address here. Once again, talking about this optional form, we're letting you all know that's it for now. It's optional now, and then you'll speed it up for you. But definitely include your contact information, because we don't have a way, and Katie has no other way to find out who that is besides you presenting it here. And so you're just slowing it down if you don't put that up front. And it's not the vendor's legal point of contact. It is your district's, because once again, Katie does not interact with the vendor's legal point of contact. And this, a reminder, the official approval letter will come from the Katie Commissioner's office. So I'll stop sharing. And okay, now I'm back to where I can see chats here. So
David, I think one of the big questions that got asked out of the gate is, when do we anticipate formally releasing documents, instruction sets, checklists, and all that good stuff to our EdTech leads?
It just happened. Well, I don't know. This was it.
Okay.
We did it last month. I mean, what more are you interested in? I'll send you the Word document. You can. I spoke from it. That is it.
Yeah, that's what they're asking about. That is the actual document itself. Yeah.
Okay, so they can. take a screenshot there, but also you can look at that Word document to that issue. So, and obviously, if you're saying, you know, this will be part of the summary notes next month, just like if you take a look at last month, you took a look at the example we said we talked about this last month. We're giving more detail here. This will copy paste the Word document into our summary notes, so it's there.
David, a couple other questions that I think Lindsay answered very well. So including the form expedites the process for now, which is awesome. That'll be helpful for folks. And then the question of the presumption that the 100K refers to the annual amount of the lease.
Is it annual or is it just the lease in total?
It's the lease in total. It's the total price of the lease, and it says that on the attorney certification form. And to clarify the form, you know, that can be edited. So it is, as David shared with you all, that's the form that has to be submitted by your board attorney. So, you know, edits. And if there's any questions about the form or anything on it, your board attorney can contact me directly.
And I think it's our intention with that Monday message email to attach that document separately. So it's not the whole Word document I went through. You will see that document is on its own. As Lindsay said, that's not editable. So you can't editable. You can't edit it. And so you can't put your superintendent's name in there. It's got to have as is. And obviously through the course of time, there may be some things there that do need to be edited, but that's going to go through a process here at KD as we learn things through this pilot process. Jody, assume that this certification really helps since it's the local board attorney knowledge that all the legal requirements have been met. Yeah, and that's what they were hoping. So that's what the purpose this we're laying out very specifically to your legal staff and vendor staff what K is looking for to speed it up. And once again, is the 100K is what the lease is for, not an annual amount. So if you enter into a 5-year lease, you know, $20,000 a year, but it goes over $100,000, that or 100,000 over that, that's what triggers that. Yeah. Let me see if I see other questions on this. Let me go back time. And those that have been watching this, is there anything else? Our field staff district, you know, you have the ability to directly talk and post. So is there something there?
David, there's nothing else on Soapbox or in the chat.
Yeah. So it is official. This is the way we're doing it. It's official. Actually, we started May 1st. This is more details of it. And I'll, you know, send, you know, the Word doc we talked from, and then to help you out with it. And if there's anything else you're not understanding, this is the time to address it. Even with our own internal staff and with district staff. Going once, going twice. All right, Lindsay, thank you for your help.
Thank you all. Bye.
You're welcome to stay on and listen to all the other things we're talking about.
I'm going to jump off here, but thank you all.
All right, thanks, Lindsay.
Bye.
Okay. Topic here. All right, so last week we were in Chicago, we being Dr. Marty Park there and Bob Hackworth and myself. There's also some other KD folks that were representing other content areas outside the Office of Education Technology. The Council for Chief State School Officers, CCSSO. For those that just be aware, that is the main thing that state agencies, DOEs in particular, use to communicate and get feedback from their equivalent peers in the other 49 states. And so for that group, typically we go in person 4 times a year, but we meet weekly with the K-12 state level CIOs meet weekly, but in person with a larger part of your staff. And Marty and Bob went, but this time Dee Dee also frequently goes to that event as well, just to hook up with the peers, the other 49 states. And that's much like when you come to KISTI or any kind of other kind of large RADIC, the RADIC event is or any other large event that brings, you know, districts together from different parts of the state, just not a region, but different parts. there's always value in what you're learning from each other. So that's always the good part of that. I did want to share some nuggets, and I've asked Bob and Marty too as well, since they were part of this 3-day event. There was quite a bit of time on the digital equity plan of states, and there's a requirement for every state to have a digital equity plan. Obviously, Kentucky has a great head start from a K-12 perspective because equity has been part of our DNA since the birth of the Kentucky Education Reform Act in 1990 and the birth of KETS in 1992. So every KETS master plan has included the importance of equity. And I think we do equity better than any other state. We're not perfect, but this equity plan goes beyond just K-12. And so I have been in regular contact with the person that leads the Kentucky Broadband Office, because most of the state level broadband offices have been tasked with the digital equity plan. It's my understanding that our Kentucky Broadband Office, which is unique, has given the lead for that with the Education and Labor Cabinet, which is, just for the educate you for this, that's not the same thing as Kentucky Department of Education. In fact, Kentucky Department of Education is a completely independent organization. Then the cabinet is just placed there for administrative kind of purposes. And the cabinet doesn't say what Katie does or doesn't do, or hire and fire our staff. So we have contacted the people in that cabinet, which we don't normally have a lot of interaction with, about the importance of including Kentucky K-12, what we've already done in equity and what we're trying to still do in it. But I think our story is one of success versus woe is me. And so we're trying to make sure and hope that whatever comes out of that plan, it does recognizes the progress that has been made in equity and Kentucky K-12 EdTech, along with the gaps that we have versus a total woe is me kind of thing. So, but I got to learn what some other states are doing with their digital equity plan and trying to make sure that they're on the radar screen of their broadband office in their state. Also, a good amount of time was spent going around the room, at least to my peers in the states, what they're doing with in the area of artificial intelligence, how they're approaching it from their DOE level and how their districts are approaching it. In our summary notes last month, I covered that topic and shared with them much of that. Also, Dr. Marty Park and myself were asked to be part of the presentation team. In fact, we were the only two presenters on artificial intelligence for the Kentucky Digital Government Summit that happened a few weeks ago. So this is all the state agencies of state government. And that was a pretty good filled room. And we shared at least our approaches in K-12, how we thought that affected other parts of state government and the organizations throughout the state. But just the main lesson learned probably of, try it yourself, get on this and understand the plus and minuses of it, work on a small project yourself to get familiar with it. I find that the states that initially tried to block it, I think New York City tried to block it. My understanding, someone mentioned they've stopped doing that. One of the states mentioned that that was on an event with yesterday. One of the districts mentioned that they're blocking it. And I just remind them that nearly every student and adult has a smartphone with its own internet access, that they're going to have a tough time stopping that. But I didn't really see from my approach that from a state level, there's any state that's blocking it or encouraging it to be blocked, and really giving that to the district, obviously through your internet content management systems in your districts. You have the ability to block that or not block that. It's totally your option as you're trying to get your hand around that. But I found that we in Kentucky and KD and OET were very advanced, is at least having had this on our radar screen. I found half the states and my equivalent position had not really given it much thought, which that surprised me. So cybersecurity, Bob, as you know, it opened the event for all disciplines. You were also part of a panel with Nebraska on that topic. So what are the main takeaways that you had from the cybersecurity part of that?
Sure, David, thank you. I have a few takeaways. I'm going to post some things in the chat, but I wanted to mention just a couple that I thought were important. And I did present with Nebraska and a couple of other state security representatives, and I shared a lot of the things that we've done here, including the security baseline project, what we're hopefully doing in the near future with Qs, which we're really excited about. And one of the most successful things that I was able to share, frankly, was the spring cleaning document that I think you guys see, well, every spring, hopefully. And because it goes through a lot of the things that are just sort of that normal, here's stuff you got to think about. And so it's interesting that a lot of states are really excited to get that level of information, like, oh yeah, we didn't think about that sort of stuff. And so that was cool. But what I heard mentioned a lot while I was there, and some of the takeaways from some of the best presentations, 90%, and a lot of it just sort of kind of reinforces what we already know, but it's great to hear from other folks, especially, government agencies, that sort of thing. 90% of successful cyber attacks begin with a phish, for example. And so if we can target getting our staff more phish resistant, either through technology or through training, we'll be a lot better off. This is an oldie but a goodie. Cyber crooks don't break in, they log in. And that speaks to that whole phishing thing again, and how we tend to let folks in, we tend to get phished out or tricked out of our credentials, that sort of thing. There was a lot of discussion from other state representatives about getting cybersecurity into the E-rate program and how important that is and how beneficial that would be, and that it just sort of makes sense, which I totally agree with. And then lastly, and I just thought this was really interesting and something that Kentucky should have kind of like, oh yeah, that just makes perfect sense. We probably have some folks out there doing it, and it's my fault for not knowing this off the top of my head. But there was a lot of discussion about getting our high school students and even middle school students into cybersecurity programs to get certifications, sort of like we've done in the past with some of our STLP programs. Cybersecurity, as you guys know, is a pretty hot field right now. And I was talking with one state who was saying that some of the students in his state graduated high school into $70,000 a year jobs, and the vendors they were with were helping pay for like half the college that those students were then also doing. And I thought that was a pretty cool idea, and something that obviously we'd want to be careful with. If you've got students kind of helping with your cybersecurity in some form or fashion, or taking that, then you have to be really careful about what they have access to, which is kind of obvious, but something I wanted to throw out there. I have some other points, but I'm just going to paste those into the chat. And if there are any questions, obviously, reach out. Thank you.
Thanks,
And
Bob.
and Bob, I'll add on that note just real quick, just as a plug. Cybersecurity industry certifications are a major part of our what we consider a fully funded computer science and IT academy for students, and so we do have an advantage there in Kentucky. Now, of course, obviously, Dr. Sean Jackson can help us understand the growth model there, but we do need more student participation, especially in that field.
So it is important, and I know we spent a lot of important on the pure technology aspects of cybersecurity, which is important to do. But this is a people issue, major. You cannot, say it enough and often. This is the major hole. And, you heard me talk about artificial intelligence, but also besides, I do think and this was talked about at the event, about it really helping be a guide on the side for teachers in a lot of different ways, and even students to a lesser degree. But also, as Bob always does, and he does a good job of saying, there's some, besides its great benefits for the medical and the education perspective, and probably the biggest benefits will occur in those two industries. Cyber criminals will be looking to how they can use artificial intelligence as well. And so, and really, as you heard, I say the weakest link is on the people side. And so I can see them creating even more convincing notes that their help desk is going to take away all their stuff unless they respond immediately, and it'll be written in a very convincing kind of way. So, like I say, I think there's plus sides, and I think there's plus sides of artificial intelligence. And obviously, I'm concerned about, there's some boundaries that need to be put in place with it, and oversight and some regs probably. And even those that are leaders in the private industry say that. So we are concerned about the misuse of that tool, particularly in cybersecurity. So it will up it up, and I don't necessarily it will be on the technical side, although we'll see that it'll be on the people side. How can they exploit that even more? Marty, you're talking about, I think, interoperability. Was it interoperability a thing that you noticed that was a common theme?
Certainly, David. So we collaborated with several other states in a priority thread from CCSSO as well, focusing on interoperability. As we all know, we have several interoperability projects or infused projects going on right now. Certainly when we talk about our connected user experience work and identity, but also we're in a much different place than other states, and we have built-in superpowers with interoperability because of our statewide standard enterprise data systems and enterprise applications. And so we're able to take these ideas of being able to connect all of our big applications, our big systems, and make them work for us better and faster than most other folks. And so we can take the big ideas and move them along much faster and help them be more efficient for us. And so when we think about data transitioning back and forth from applications and flow, and that's exciting for us. And so interoperability was a big thread and big theme, especially in terms of kind of modernized work that we're after, which also touches on a topic that we'll speak to here in a few minutes, which is our CETS master plan. But I mentioned that because there's a lot of modernization that we are thinking about and will be implementing into our CETS master plan. So we were able to work at the national level with other states, as well as the U.S. Department of Education and other national organizations to grab some major nuggets for CETS master plan, which I'm excited about. One specific that I would like to mention is that the National EdTech Plan is being drafted right now. We're hoping to see an early draft sometime in July, August timeframe. There will be three main targets in that National EdTech Plan. That's digital access, digital design, and digital use. And those three main pieces, thankfully for us, are already integrated into our 2018 through 2024 CETS master plan. And so it'll be nice to see where those fit in with the national narrative on how education technologies can help infuse our work in our public schools. So, David, that's a point that I wanted to make.
Thanks. Last one, and I'm going to circle back if Lisa's. I noticed I missed something. Is you're going to get AI to death from vendors that would be their buzzword of everything. So just get ready for the avalanche of AI. And as I tell vendor reps, and they're real well-meaning, is make sure that you're really addressing the what districts need and the agency needs versus just trying to repackage something as AI that organizations really don't need. So just be aware. I'm sure the AI marketing avalanche is heading your way if it's not already been there. I didn't want to go back to the Lisa's part. There was a question we asked in Go Soapbox. Could you bring in Go Soapbox question 3 so I can see it? And you can see those responses.
Absolutely.
So part of the reason I asked that question is just how many districts do not have a legal rep where the superintendent is going to be playing that role or someone else in the district. Okay, so there's 4. Okay. And just because we had a good number of not experiences, but it could be, you never know when your time is. It's there. Doesn't matter till it matters, I know. So in those rare instances, it's good that you have a legal rep. That will definitely speed it up. If you do not, that will probably slow it down. There's no doubt about it, where like the superintendent is playing that role and talking and getting the legal stuff from your vendor that is trying to respond to that checklist. So that helps me. I did want to one of the questions I expected I'll cover here is for those that submit a lease, why I know what the status of approval is. And you kind of heard me say it. There's nothing really fancy here. This is right-hand layup stuff. OET approves it 99% of the time on the same day. Okay, so OET's approval is going to be, it's 3 to 5 minutes. We create the approval note, and for the most part, OET's portion is done. As long as you send it to the leases over 100K. The commissioner's office portion is usually done the same day they get the Office of Legal Services thumbs up. So where's most of the time being spent on lease approvals is from the legal aspect of it. And so if you're wanting to know the status, my first suggestion is for you to talk to your legal rep of your district. For those that have it, and looks like a very high percentage of it do, see what's the status, because that's where it's going to be at. It's either them talking with KD's legal or them talking with the vendor's legal. So that's my first recommendation for you. Say, what's the status of this? My second recommendation is you can send it to leases over 100K. You say, what's the status of lease whatever at? Because that goes to the 3 main points of contact. In OET, Office of Legal Services, and the Commissioner's Office. Now, OET has already done their part. So our OET rep will not be looking at that, our point of contact. So whoever has it still, it is their responsibility to take a look at that and respond. So if it's in the Office of Legal Services, it will go to the main point of contact. When you send it that address, it goes to the main point of contact there, and they'll be their responsibility to respond to you if they can. Right now, my understanding is they don't give a time frame that it'll be approved, but they do say if the checklist is filled out and it's signed by your legal representation, not the vendor's legal rep, but your district's legal rep, that really expedites it. I mean, as close to as automatic immediately as you can get, much like ours. Ours is OETs is automatic, immediate. You do that, that's pretty much automatic, immediate. Anything less than that is it's somewhere in the grind of going back and forth between legal folks trying to take a look, make sure all the documents are there, make sure all the wording is there. And so the last course is my least preferred course, is you send it to me and what's the status. You've added an unnecessary step in my view, because all I'm going to do is I'm going to forward it to the legal point of contact and Office of Legal Services or the Commissioner's Office, but probably more so the Office of Legal Services. And so my advice to you too is don't send it to me, send it to that leases over 100K and or ask your legal rep. See if there's anything else on that I want to. Okay, I think that was it. So let's talk about, Bob, you hit on a little bit. I don't know if we need more. Is this just the K-12 cybersecurity health check? I do want to mention this. Of the other 49 states, a real advantage that you have in districts over the other 49 states is you have this tool, this leverage. When I present that, districts every year get the opportunity to brief their superintendent board or have them educated on the cybersecurity health check of the district. That's a wonderful type of thing, although you may not look at it, because typically 95% of the time, district tech leaders do not get a chance to brief and get that in front of their superintendent and their local board members before something happens. So this is your all's opportunity to say, hey, listen, here's the things that we're doing pretty strong, and here's our risk. And you're making them aware of the risk way ahead of time. So if something were to happen and you give the probabilities of, well, we have risk, but it's an acceptable risk. If it does go bad, you're not all of a sudden thrown under the bus going, well, why didn't you tell us? You're given an opportunity up front, much like I do with our commissioner and our board. I do exactly that. I let them know, here's the things that we're doing well. Here's the things that, have some risk to it, and here's associated risk. If you want to eliminate the risk to zero, here's the millions of dollars it will take. If you're willing to accept that risk and not pay X millions of dollars, then here's the probability of that occurring and the consequences of that. But it really gives you a chance to lay that out. And Bob, is here in KDI really, that's a real edge for us. In my position over the other 49 states for the DOE. And it really is an edge that you all have in your organization that I hope you fully take advantage of, because 99% of the time in districts across America, you're not given this opportunity until you have a crisis, and it's too late. Typically, you're thrown on the bus for not letting them know, even though you probably let them know out of the ways. You really never got their, hey, listen, every year, here's my chance to educate you on it. So, Bob, I'll hand it over to you. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say about it.
Yeah, just one more thing, David. That was great, and it is a wonderful opportunity. That's something I try to make sure folks understand. Not only is it something you have to do, it's something that it gives us that chance to be seen. And a lot of times security just isn't seen. It's something that we hope for, but we never really know about. But more importantly, when you're talking with your board or talking with anyone really, take an opportunity. You can do this behind closed doors, and I encourage you to do this behind closed doors versus airing the dirty laundry of your district's security or lack of security in a public setting. So state statute does allow for you to do this behind closed doors, just like they would with legal concerns, staffing concerns, anything that could bring potential danger and risk to the district or to KDE for that matter, is something that we can go behind closed doors with in our board meetings so that it doesn't become part of public record. You don't get crazy people out in the audience learning where all the PII is kept, that sort of thing, what you are doing, what you're not doing. So keep that in mind. So we want to make sure we maintain our privacy with this as well. A lot of this stuff would be very, very interesting to folks who maybe don't have our district's best interests at heart. I also threw out in the chat just a reminder about that, and then a reminder about the June 30 deadline for the security baseline MFA. So hopefully everyone who doesn't have that done is working on that. If you do have questions about that, a lot of our Microsoft support has kind of faded away due to the contract for that being up. However, if you have issue with your MFA, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and we can see what we can do to help you out with that with your district. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, David. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. We're working as we mentioned last month, and you saw it in the summary notes. A couple of these we mentioned the summary notes last month, and we don't have a big update to it, but it's our intention to present the 2025 to 2030 KETS Master Plan for Education Technology to the Kentucky Board of Education in August, and it then goes through a whole process to be an administrative regulation by reference. Mike, you want to give us an update on that? Mike's leading the effort, coordinating along with his team to get that done.
So yeah, as we've mentioned, we are working on the master plan, and our goal is to keep this as a minor revision to the master plan because we spent a lot of energy last go around on the current master plan. However, that's sometimes difficult to do, and I'll just reference Marty speaking of some good nuggets and takeaways of talking with other states, and as we fuel those conversations, that all leads to us, saying, hey, that would be good for us to incorporate some different thoughts and ideas in our new master plan. And so again, we'll work hard to be disciplined in keeping this as a minor revision to the master plan. I think that we'll be in a position to share some of what's going on with the master plan, maybe in our June webcast through the KEs. I think we'll share some of that. Again, as David mentioned, we'll be presenting that new revision of the master plan to the state board in August, which means that we pretty much have to have it done about a month ahead of that. Just in a high level way of looking at the timeline associated to that. We do know that there's three primary areas that we'll be looking to make some revisions to. One is our areas of emphasis, areas of acceleration. We'll be tweaking and modifying those, even though we do consider the master plan to be a living document. So we've been keeping those things up to date and making revisions, but we'll still do a pretty focused effort looking at that. The unmet need budget, master plan budget, that is something that is our guiding light about the cost associated to running the KETS program, is certainly an area that we're going to spend some time on and review and make some revisions of what and how that's information is represented. And then the standards area, we'll also be putting a pretty focused area on the standards area as well. So again, that's the status. That's where that's at. I'll go ahead and mention well, does anybody see any questions on that? I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next topic here, and folks can we'll circle back to questions as needed. So status on some of the RFPs and some of the initiatives we have going on. I want to, I'm going to mention the next generation K through 12 internet as obviously not an RFP or a new contract. Well, it is a new contract, fairly new, but we're certainly continuing to make progress on implementing and doing the planning preparation for transition over the next year. Still on schedule, and the intent is to have that completed by June of 2024. So a lot of effort on that. I think every district has had some involvement, some touch point with that at this point, with all of the initial site surveys and site readiness that has been going on. So obviously a lot of interaction, activity, and communication going on about that topic. I also want to mention real quickly, as far as an initiative that's continuing to progress forward, is the education licensure. Not going to go into the details about it, but something that's worthwhile for folks to pay attention to. And I want to make a comment right now. If I went a little dark there, my lights in my office for some reason now go off after 15 minutes. It used to be they'd stay on a lot longer, but I guess I'm supposed to get up and move around at least every 15 minutes, because now my lights go off in my office at least about 15 minutes after I'm sitting in one spot. So if I went a little dark, that's what happened. So yeah, I can still see my notes here though.
You look like you're in the witness protections program.
So we're saving energy here at the Frankfurt office building. So anyway, I just want to mention the education licensure is something that people should continue to pay attention to and be aware of. Obviously a big deal as far as what we're doing and putting in a new system. There are several phases associated to education licensure. I just want to make sure that folks still are aware and paying attention to that. The connected user experience. Somebody's going to come in and turn my lights on for me now. There we go.
Well, Martin said you need a treadmill desk.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And typically I do get up and move around a lot. So connected user experience has not been released yet. Everybody's aware that's something that we are intending to move forward with an RFP on. So again, that continues to progress forward. Again, not been released, so it's not out there being advertised yet as far as for responses, but it will be shortly. School report card is out there and publicly available for those that will be responding to that. I think the closing date is June 28th for that. So again, something to be aware of and pay attention to. We'll be looking forward to the results of that and what comes out of how we'll be making some changes to how we provide the school report card. And then the SEEK system, I want to mention real quick, which is mostly internal, even though a lot of the things you all do feed into that. And that's certainly the system or systems made up of multiple things that provides the predominant funding to all the school districts. And that closed, and so that is in the status of responses that were received are being evaluated and looked at, and so it'll lead to a contract award, hopefully here in the very near future. One other thing I'll mention, I'm skipping one item on the agenda here because it's real quick, is the offers of assistance to school districts. The second offers of the school offers has went out. Doesn't mean that you necessarily received the money yet, but it's certainly the opportunity for you to respond to that has went out for the total for the year of $21 per ADA. I think the second one was the $9 one. So if you haven't seen that, or you're not sure your status on that or whatnot, be sure and check on it. You can contact us, contact your KE for any kind of guidance on that, but I'm pretty sure we got responses from everybody at this point. So I don't know that there's any lingering or any concerning areas there. But like I say, if you as an individual district feel like you're not sure where you're at with that, be sure and follow up on it. All right, we'll go to some other items. I won't skip on down.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Bill Comey, you want to talk about the update on the end of support for Windows 10, and we need to get moving to Windows 11 near future?
Well, Windows 10 will be going end of life with no support sometime in 25. We think in the summer, maybe July of 25. So that's a couple years, but Microsoft has been building into some of the updates that we provide to you all through WSS, through that service. Automatic updates that would take a Windows 10 machine to Windows 11, probably without your knowing it. So Microsoft's been doing this with the home with the home products for about a year. But so we've been squelching that on your behalf so that you don't run into a whole bunch of Windows 10 workstations getting Windows 11 updates. So as we have done in the past, we are putting something in place that will not only squelch that, but it will give you the ability to opt in for groups of workstations that you want to do on your terms. And that's a really, really long runway, and that will kind of bring us to, let's say, July of 24, when we'll go ahead and make that available to everyone. Because it's really important that we go from 10 to 11, even though that's not a huge update visibly, I don't think, but it's one that we can control, and it's one that we should do that with. Unlike Teams, David, that's one of the downsides of having lots of cloud technologies is some of those updates just happen, and we don't know it, and we're trying to get a handle on that up front. But sometimes they just happen overnight. They happen when you log out and and it's different for different people. So it's somewhat all over the place for Office 365 tools. But I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's keeping updated is always a good thing. So, but just wanted to let you all know that there'll be more details coming from your KEs, but this will be a very familiar process that we have used in the past.
Thanks, Phil.
Yep.
We've talked about the Affordability Connectivity Program. This is a federal program, really came out of the COVID-19. I can tell you at the national level, and talk you with my equivalent position of the other 49 states. We met with the FCC several months ago, and will continue to do so, to try to make sure that is a continued item even after the pandemic. The federal funding, the COVID-19 funding expires. And just to give you history, it used to be the Lifeline program that provided, $9.99 a month. This one does $30 a month. It's a substantial upgrade. The good news is, from Kentucky's perspective, we've made connections with low-income parents. I mean, this really helps low-income parents afford the internet service. And by far, as I presented to our peers in Chicago, and part of the digital equity plan is 90% of the problem in Kentucky and across the country is not that folks don't have an internet option, and then there's places that you all are from that have zero. But the problem is they can't afford the one they have or the multiple ones they have. And we have areas they have 5 different last mile internet options, wired and wireless, and they can't afford it. And we ran into that early in the pandemic, and we found out that the folks that were jumping up and down were primarily from folks that couldn't afford it. And so we're hoping there's sustainment of this funds, but also does make me sad that we have a huge portion of our low-income families that aren't aware that this is in play, available to them, or don't know all the steps they got to go through to get it, or haven't gone through it. So we've made progress, but it's not as much as we have. But it's in comparison to the other 49 states, we're up in the very top of that, but we like to get more. So Marty, I know you want to give that a plug as well.
Yeah, thanks, David. And we're going to keep this program top of mind and continue to make a statewide push. The ACP, or the Affordable Connectivity Program, is a program that we greatly believe in, and due to affordability being that main hurdle and that main access gap, we're going to continue to push pretty hard. So I wanted to take just a couple minutes and push on a couple things. Number one, Dave and I we just got an update this morning actually, that we've made another jump over the last couple weeks in participation. So we're now up to 42% participation, which is a really big deal. We're only being outpaced by 3 other states across the country. And again, these are just measures to look at to kind of understand how well we're doing with not just marketing, but helping our parents understand and get easy access. So that's the point for us. It's all about getting parents onboarded into the program. This is a federal program. We don't really touch it necessarily, but we can help parents get onboarded efficiently. So as of today, 80% of our Kentucky public school students are eligible for ACP. So that's 80%. So that's the high bar, that's the mark, that's the target that we're after. And so that 80% represents about 566,000 kids. Our target, and this is a goal that we've set internally, our target is 70% participation. That is very aggressive and very strong, but we believe that we can do it. Now, we know that there will be some parents who or guardians who just do not want to have internet access in their home or with their students, and we understand that and respect that. But our target is 70% participation, and so that represents about close to 400,000 kids, and so that's a really good mark for us. So we've implemented a couple pieces that we're very excited about. I'm going to share my screen and also reference, Dave, I'm going to go ahead and reference the Go Soapbox question that we asked. But so we know that we've offered some coaching on using Infinite Campus Messenger to push out eligibility letters to parents. And so our target for districts to use the messenger function through Infinite Campus to, again, push out these eligibility letters, which are a required part for parents to participate. They have to show that the school is giving them the eligibility letter. And so that's the piece, that's the part that we all play. So our target is 100 districts using the functionality that's built into our system. So that's 100 districts. Right now, we're sitting somewhere between, we're right at about 15 districts, I believe, that are using, and this is over just the last couple of weeks that we've made this progress. And so, again, very bold, very aggressive, but 100 districts using the messenger function to automatically send out that participation letter, or that eligibility letter is important. So I'm going to share my screen real quick and just run through a couple points here. And one of the questions that we asked, and again, 52 folks have already responded to, which is great. But it's all about have schools in your district started generating the eligibility letter and shared through with parents through Infinite Campus, Parent Portal. And right now, about 14. I said 15, but 14 have responded that that they are using that functionality. That's great. We know that there's a strong push by some of us to try to get this in the hands of parents prior to students leaving for the year. We're down to just days before our students leave and go out of our care and leave for summer break. So 12%, 6 of us have responded that not yet, but planning to before school close. Now, here's the other big jump. When we've talked directly with several of you that have identified your push is going to be when students get back in August. And so 24 responded that not yet, but in August, when students get back, that's going to be the big marketing push. And then 8 have responded that they need more information and like to know, would like to have more information. And so, we released last week with our Office of Communications a couple press releases. We sent out with superintendents this information about the Affordable Connectivity Program. It pushed on Kentucky Teacher as well as through social media. And so we're getting good response there. Lots of folks have started to ask questions based on that, as David mentioned. This program for parents is $30 per month. In the federal program, but also a one-time discount of $100 on purchasing a device for home use and directly in the home. And so that's fantastic as well. We've also published some information on our KDE website that points to additional resources. The resource that I want to call your attention to, Jennifer Winburn on our team with Dee Dee Connor have offered some training sessions so that you can learn how to efficiently and effectively push out this eligibility letter through Infinite Campus Messenger. And that was well attended. We were very excited about the number of districts who participated in that, but Jennifer has also published a little quick self-help guide on how to get that set up and how to push that out. If you have any questions, please, please, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. As we want to, again, continue to push on this program. We believe in the program. It's very helpful. And then I did want to just share, David, again, we're leading the country in participation right now. We're being outpaced by 3 states. Very unhappy that we're being outpaced a little bit by Ohio. And so we need to double down with our efforts over the next several weeks so that we can get our participation up to that target, which is that 70% of our kids who are eligible can participate. The last note I'll make, David, is that our schools who are in community eligibility, that is a great opportunity for all students that are enrolled in that school to participate. And so that's a major shot in the arm for us across the state. And the eligibility letter is pretty easy to send out. And we did get word, and we had to directly work with the FCC last week, and they are accepting our letter now, which is perfect. So that letter that gets auto-generated from Infinite Campus is now being accepted.
Did get a question, and we don't do it in detail. I saw from Matt Bell talking about what we do when our local internet company doesn't respond or reply to families who send the application and paperwork. Well, first of all, I have a problem with them not responding. Who is that? I think we need to identify who that is and let them get the credit due. If Matt, if you can tell me what company is not responding at all. And I know Jody sent a note that not every provider may participate. I'd like to know who those are that are not. They need to have some light brought upon them for not participating in that. So you can help by helping us identify who they are. And first of all, you should get a response no matter what. That's just that way to do good business. But I'd be interested in who is not, to see if some pressure can be brought to bear to them.
And Dave, that link I put in the chat there's a page on the FCC site that lets people search by zip code or city and state, and lets them know what providers are participating. And so, yeah, just a double check for Matt or anybody else that might have that going on.
And help us for those that are not, so we can give them the proper attention they should receive for not participating in this. So I would love to be part of that. And Dee Dee was talking about start saving. How can we ensure the message goes to eligible folks? And Dee Dee put a link in there. I think that helps, right? Is that what your purpose was, Dee Dee, to help them out with that?
And just to note, on the federal, linked on our KDE website for ACP, we have the links for the federal resources. There are tools that if there is a company a provider that has agreed to offer the ACP credit and is not, there's an opportunity to submit that directly to the FCC and they have a tool to do that.
So the DD presentation was recorded, and Tim's looking forward to watching that with his wife.
We did, after that presentation, make a few tweaks because we were trying to put each student's name on one letter, and Jennifer thought that was possible, but it only takes one child to be eligible. Right. So all the students don't need to be on the same letter, just needs to have one. They only have to apply one time for the family. It's a family household benefit. It's not an individual student benefit. So keep that in mind. And there's ad hocs that have already pushed down into Infinite Campus that allow you to very easily connect and get the right students that are eligible to send these messages out. I'll just, encourage one more time, even an early summer message to some of those of you waiting. Just like anything, it takes a little bit of time. Give their students the best chance to be successful and get this all set up before summer, during the summer, so they're ready to go in the fall. And if I still think it's a good reminder in the fall to send out again, but definitely something that students can get connected that maybe haven't otherwise been, or save some money to keep them connected.
And thank you for that, Dee Dee. And Randy asked a great question as well. The program, the design is an annual renew, but keep in mind there's two steps. One, you apply to the FCC per the instructions, and receive notification that you've been approved for the ACP program, and then you notify your provider that you are eligible and you have been accepted into the ACP, the federal program. What we know, though, is that there are many providers who they take the approach of, you need to let us know when you no longer have a student. And so it is kind of a high five handshake moment with the federal program and your local provider. And so, for example, we know that if a student graduates, then the household is no longer eligible for the ACP. It's upon the household to notify the provider that, hey, our student is no longer in the house. But
it's also, they might be eligible under a different scenario.
That's right.
I mean, there's income provisions. There doesn't have to be a family in the, we're promoting the student connection, but it doesn't require there be a student. And students that graduate and they're going on to college that are Pell eligible and they're getting Pell money, they're automatically eligible. So it's not once you graduate, you're definitely now eligible. It's the fact that you're going to have to prove you're eligible under another scenario.
Under a different program.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just giving a quick scenario to.
So, yeah. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I didn't want anybody send something and connect, disconnect everybody at the end of the graduation year.
So, well, I'll go ahead and answer because we can go through the rest of the agenda here. If you can, Nathan just asked a question, so if you respond to that in the chat for me, Marty. But thanks for the update on that. We'll continue to have it on our radar screen. One of the questions that I'll ask, and I'll take a look at your comments in the chat, is should I get on the agenda of the superintendents, and they meet regularly to talk about the major technology initiatives that your EdTech staff is working on that they need to be aware of and get and support you on. We got a lot of different cybersecurity initiatives going on that we're trying to get across the finish line. And if would just help me speaking about those and the need for them to support your efforts in that, along with I'll probably mention the needs for them to support our additional budget request to raise the CETS baseline, maybe an opportunity for me to do that. But let me know your thoughts on that, to giving it a plug of the things on your radar screen to be supportive of you and of the overall in general, but also our attempts to raise the CETS baseline, the Kentucky Education Technology System baseline funding, which benefits the shared services we offer to districts along with our financial offers of assistance. So hopefully you are supportive of that. I always tell folks this, I take silence as an answer. So here's my view of it. If you don't respond, I'm going to take your silence as yes, as an enthusiastic yes, please do that. Otherwise, you can put you don't want that in the chats or speak up. So silence is always, anybody that's been around me, is a response. You're saying something by silence. And so I'm going to take the silence as an enthusiastic or a yes, or just a yes in general versus a no. We gave you the date there for our vendor partners here. We're going to meet with you on July 12th. We do that every year for our vendor partners. Typically in these meetings is they don't really get a chance and to speak up and really vote on stuff, but we give them their day. As most folks know, I very rarely spend time with tech vendors. Typically there's only two exceptions. One we've just done an RFP award, and we're doing the initial implementation across the state. And number two is we have an issue with the vendor. Typically, most of the time, I do not spend time with vendors going over your new product lines or sharing with you our priorities, because this method is what we use to share our priorities with districts. So July 12th.
So real quickly, David, on that, I'll just mention real quick for the folks that are watching that will be attending that. Obviously, it is a valuable thing that we do, try to do on an annual basis, is to meet with our partners. I do want to just real quickly mention there is the ability for that to be participated in both on site and virtually. So our partners need to be aware of that. And then there is a required registration, which that information has just recently went out on how to get registered for that. So I want to make sure that folks are responsive to that and get prepared for that. So, all right. Thanks.
Thanks. I know Paul Shoemaker's on with us, Paul. I appreciate all your efforts with online summative testing, regardless of folks, feeling about summative testing. Kentucky definitely has one of the most successful online testing summative programs in the United States, and that's not by accident. And I just love giving the number there, over 1.5. I know you update that every day for me, Paul, so I know it's going well. There's a lot of moving parts that got to come together and work correctly. Doesn't get its due. I know we had the largest one ever done, and COVID hit. So it never got, publicity. And typically, as you know, the way media type of things work, especially in this area, you don't get attention for doing things well. You get attention for things not going well. So this has gone well now for 3 or 4 years in a row. Appreciate all those that make that happen. That's not by accident. You know, Paul's team and Paul and our Office of Assessment Accountability and Pearson and the district staff that pull that off, and of course the students. So that's well worth taking a little moment to celebrating, even though we won't get a high five for it, unless it was a disaster. Then it would be all over everything, or having any kind of problem. It doesn't have to be a total disaster. It just has to be one not doing it to get the unwanted attention versus the high five. One last thing is, Edie, I know we had a Go Soapbox question for you. Show Go Soapbox question number 2. This is our friendly way to remind you of the need to annually budget for and pay for the Infinite Campus, your all's portion of the Infinite Campus bill. So if someone can bring up Go Soapbox question number 2, and Dee, any kind of final plug you want to make to that?
Yeah, this is just a reminder to you all. It's not due until August 15th, but the reality is that some people have money to pay for it in this fiscal year, and they like to go ahead and pay for it. Some people would rather wait to the new fiscal year and pay for it next year. So whichever way is fine. We're not pushing, but if you did not get the invoice, Ryan is always quick to respond if you send an email out to the KDE data request at education.ky.gov mailbox, and he can respond and give you a copy of the bill.
Thanks. Final comments. I'll circle back to the beginning on the leases over 100,000. Is I will, for our field staff members and for our own OET staff members and for districts, I'll make some final edits today to this, just based upon our discussion today, some of the questions that were asked, and we'll send you the Word document, and you'll have that. And then next Monday, the document that I shared with you, that's part of this, the subset of this, will be shared with your superintendents. So you'll have it that way. Last comment here is summer break is happening. High school graduations are occurring now. All types of encouragement is occurring now. I hope you have a good summer break. For a good number of you, this will be the last time that we get together for a while collectively. So I hope you have a good summer break. Definitely take some time off and refresh. A little bit different than the past ones. We had complete COVID years or partial COVID years. This was nice to have, be honest with you, as much as you can, a regular school year. But from a technology perspective, we have lots of going on. I've always waited in my 31 years for it to calm down and be able to enjoy some time off. But it's never happened. We always have this next major wave of things occurring, but it's always important to refresh yourself. And I hope you take some time off. I definitely intend to do that. So thanks for joining us here in May, and hope you have a good June and July. And we'll see you. For some of you, next time we'll talk to you is in August timeframe. Take care.